Donald Trump, a name that has become almost synonymous with controversy and media frenzy. From the moment he announced his candidacy for the presidency, he has been a polarizing figure. His brash style, unfiltered comments, and unconventional approach to politics have made him a constant subject of both admiration and criticism. Before his foray into politics, Trump was already a household name. As a real estate mogul, he built an empire that included some of the most iconic buildings in New York City. His fame only grew with his role as the host of the reality TV show The Apprentice, where his catchphrase, "You're fired," became a part of popular culture. But it was his unexpected victory in the 2016 presidential election that truly shook the foundations of American politics. His presidency was marked by a series of unprecedented events and decisions that left the nation deeply divided. Central to Trump's narrative was the concept of the deep state, a shadowy network of bureaucrats and officials supposedly working behind the scenes to undermine his administration. This idea, while not new, gained significant traction during his time in office. For many of his supporters, the deep state was a convenient explanation for the numerous challenges and obstacles Trump faced. They saw him as a disruptor, a lone warrior battling against a corrupt and entrenched system that was resistant to change. This narrative resonated deeply with a segment of the population that felt disillusioned with the political establishment. They believed that Trump was the only one who could bring about the change they desired, even if it meant upending traditional norms and practices. On the other hand, Trump's opponents viewed his claims about the deep state as baseless and dangerous. They argued that these assertions were a way to undermine democratic institutions and sow distrust in the government. To them, Trump's rhetoric was not about fighting corruption, but about consolidating power and deflecting criticism. The truth, as always, is likely more nuanced. While the existence of a monolithic deep state is debatable, there's no denying the reality of bureaucratic inertia and resistance to change. Government institutions, by their very nature, are slow to adapt and often resistant to sudden shifts in policy or leadership. Trump's presidency, with its unorthodox style and policies, undoubtedly faced pushback from within the system. This resistance could be seen as a natural response to his attempts to disrupt the status quo. However, whether this pushback was motivated by a desire to protect vested interests or uphold democratic norms is a question that remains open to interpretation. Throughout his time in office, Trump took numerous actions that challenged established protocols and norms. From his executive orders to his approach to foreign policy, he often bypassed traditional channels and methods. This approach, while appealing to his base, also led to significant friction with the bureaucracy. The question is whether this pushback was motivated by a desire to protect vested interests or uphold democratic norms. Some argue that the resistance Trump faced was a necessary check on his power, ensuring that no single individual could override the principles of democracy. Others believe it was an attempt by the establishment to maintain its grip on power. The answer is far from simple. It requires a careful examination of Trump's actions and their implications. One of the most contentious issues was his approach to declassifying sensitive documents. This move ignited fierce debate about transparency, national security, and the limits of executive power. As we continue to analyze the impact of Trump's presidency, it is essential to consider the broader context. The interplay between a president who sought to challenge the system and a bureaucracy that resisted change is a complex and multifaceted issue. Understanding this dynamic is crucial to comprehending the lasting effects of Trump's time in office and the ongoing debates about the deep state and its role in American politics. At the heart of the Trump documents saga lies a fundamental tension: the public's right to know versus the government's need for secrecy. This tension is not new. It has been a recurring theme throughout American history. From the Pentagon Papers to the Snowden revelations, the struggle between transparency and security has always been a contentious issue. The Trump era, however, brought this debate into sharper focus, with unprecedented actions and reactions from both sides of the political spectrum. Trump argued that his declassification of certain documents was driven by a desire for transparency, to expose alleged wrongdoing by his predecessors. He claimed that the American people had a right to see these documents, to understand the actions of their government, and to hold their leaders accountable. This, he said, was a cornerstone of democracy. By declassifying these documents, Trump positioned himself as a champion of the people's right to know, a defender of open government against the shadows of secrecy. The American people deserve to know the truth, he declared, framing his actions as a blow against government secrecy and a victory for open government. His rhetoric resonated with many who felt disillusioned by what they perceived as a lack of transparency in previous administrations. For them, Trump's actions were a breath of fresh air, a promise of a new era where the government would be more accountable to its citizens. His supporters cheered, seeing it as proof that he was fighting the deep state and its culture of concealment. They believed that Trump was taking a stand against a system that had long been shrouded in secrecy and corruption. For them, the declassification was not just about the documents themselves, but about a broader fight for transparency and accountability in government. Critics, however, raised serious concerns about the potential consequences of his actions. They argued that the declassification of sensitive information could have far-reaching implications, not just for national security, but for the safety of individuals and the integrity of international relations. The critics warned that such actions could set a dangerous precedent, where the line between transparency and recklessness becomes blurred. They argued that declassifying sensitive information without proper procedures could compromise national security, endanger intelligence sources, and damage diplomatic relations. The potential fallout from such actions could be severe, affecting not only the United States but also its allies and partners around the world. The critics emphasized the importance of following established protocols and procedures to ensure that declassification is done responsibly and with due consideration of the potential risks. The debate over Trump's declassification actions is not just about legal technicalities, it's about the very principles that underpin American democracy. It touches on fundamental questions about the balance of power between the executive branch and other branches of government, the limits of executive authority, and the role of transparency in a democratic society. This debate is a reflection of the broader struggle to define the values and principles that should guide the actions of government officials. It raises profound questions about the balance of power, the limits of executive authority, and the delicate dance between transparency and national security. As the nation grapples with these issues, the outcome of this debate will have lasting implications for the future of American democracy and the relationship between the government and its citizens. The Trump document saga is a reminder of the ongoing struggle to find the right balance between openness and security in a complex and ever-changing world. Another disturbing aspect of the Trump era was the systematic removal or sidelining of government watchdogs. These individuals, often career civil servants, play a crucial role in holding those in power accountable and ensuring that laws are followed. Trump's administration saw a wave of departures and dismissals of inspectors general, the independent officials tasked with investigating wrongdoing within government agencies. Some were fired outright while others were reassigned or saw their authority curtailed. This purge of watchdogs raised alarm bells among good governance advocates. They argued that it was part of a broader pattern of Trump undermining democratic norms and consolidating power. Without independent oversight, they warned, corruption could flourish unchecked. The weakening of government accountability mechanisms has far-reaching consequences. It erodes public trust in institutions, creates a climate of impunity, and makes it easier for those in power to abuse their positions. The full impact of these actions may not be felt for years to come. Section 4. Challenging norms, DEI and binary gender debates. The Trump presidency was marked by a resurgence of cultural and social divisions. These divisions were not new, but they were certainly amplified during his time in office. The debates over diversity, equity and inclusion, often abbreviated as DEI, became particularly heated. One particularly contentious area involved debates over diversity, equity and inclusion, known as DEI, and challenges to traditional binary gender norms. These debates were not just academic, they had real-world implications for policies and everyday interactions. Trump's rhetoric and policies often inflamed these tensions, fueling anxieties and resentments on both sides of the political spectrum. His speeches and tweets frequently targeted marginalized communities, which many saw as a deliberate strategy to energize his base. Critics accused Trump of using divisive language and policies to appeal to his base, often at the expense of minority groups. They argued that his approach was not just politically motivated, but also deeply harmful to the social fabric of the nation. They pointed to his administration's efforts to roll back LGBTQ+ rights, including attempts to ban transgender individuals from serving in the military, and to allow businesses to refuse service to LGBTQ+ individuals on religious grounds. Restrict immigration from Muslim-majority countries, which was seen by many as a thinly veiled attempt to discriminate against Muslims. The travel bans and family separations at the border were particularly controversial, and limit access to abortion as evidence of a discriminatory agenda. The administration's support for restrictive abortion laws was viewed as an attack on women's rights and bodily autonomy. Trump's supporters, on the other hand, argued that he was simply challenging political correctness and standing up for traditional values. They believed that his policies were a necessary corrective to what they saw as an overreach by progressive movements. They saw his policies as a way to restore what they perceived as a lost sense of national identity and cultural cohesion. For them, the focus was on preserving what they considered to be the core values of American society. The debates over DEI and gender identity are complex and deeply personal. They touch on issues that go to the heart of who we are as individuals and as a society. These discussions are not just about policies, but about the kind of world we want to live in. They touch on fundamental questions of equality, identity, and belonging. How do we ensure that everyone feels included and valued? How do we balance different perspectives and experiences in a way that is fair and just? Finding common ground in these discussions requires empathy, understanding, and a willingness to listen to perspectives different from our own. It is a challenging but essential task if we are to move forward as a cohesive and inclusive society. Section 5. The LGBTQ community policy shifts and their implications. The LGBTQ+ community experienced a mixed bag of policy shifts under the Trump administration. While some advancements occurred, like the appointment of openly gay individuals to prominent positions, these were often overshadowed by actions perceived as hostile or discriminatory. One significant point of contention was the ban on transgender individuals serving openly in the military. This policy reversal, enacted via Twitter, ignited protests and legal challenges, with opponents arguing that it was discriminatory and unconstitutional. Further concerns arose from the administration's stance on healthcare and education. Efforts to roll back protections for transgender students and limit access to healthcare for transgender individuals fueled anxieties and uncertainties within the LGBTQ+ community. The Trump era highlighted the ongoing struggle for LGBTQ+ equality and the vulnerability of hard-won rights. It also underscored the importance of continued advocacy, legal challenges, and public awareness campaigns in securing and expanding those rights.